When I was a young Christian, I battled with everything, trying to figure out how do you become a better Christian? How do you make this thing work? And because I came out of the world, I was part of the drug culture and crime and a whole bunch of other things. It was like Christianity at times made sense and at times it didn't. At times it was a huge struggle. In the course of my life before I became a Christian, I grew up in madness. I really did. I had relatives that were big-time drug dealers and gang members and motorcycle presidents. One of my uncles was a Hells Angel president. And I grew up in the occult and just a whole bunch of nasty garbage. And all of a sudden, Jesus reached down and he plucked me out of that pit. And I learned who he was. And then I started learning how to make things happen. But, because of the way that I lived my life before I was a Christian, I hadn't cleaned up everything. Cleaned up most of my life, what I was personally doing, like I stopped smoking pot, stopped doing drugs, quit making a mess of myself and, started working, all those different things and, quit selling drugs, Sounds so funny to say something like that, but it's what I did, the things that I went through. But there was something that hung over me for a while right after I became a Christian. I had these funny little things that were waiting in my background called warrants for your arrest. Yeah. I hadn't taken care of everything, and I'd kind of been trying to avoid them and thinking, maybe they'll just go away, but, they never do. And one day I decided I was going to deal with my past. And I walked into the city prison in San Francisco. It's their main jail. I walked up to the little desk with the bulletproof glass and a little hole in it. Started talking to the lady on the other side. I said, "Hi, my name is William Jackson Bolin Jr. And I'm here because you want me." Here's my social security number. Look it up and you'll see you really want me. And so she looked it up and he goes, "Yes, we do." So this man promptly came out from the door, and he came out with a pair of handcuffs, said, "Put your hands behind your back," and they cuffed me and took me into the elevator, and I wound up in the elevator with at the same time as the Harvey Milk whole thing was happening, and the guy who killed the council member was in the elevator with me. So there was all these cameras. The whole world is looking at me getting arrested. I'm just thinking, oh, great. They took me up to the 5th floor because the 5th and 6th floor in the San Francisco City Prison, that's where inmates went, top 2 floors. And so they put me into a cell, and I'm in there with about 30 other guys, bunks and all that. And I had made a decision because every time I'd been to jail before, and I don't want to tell you how many times I'd been in jail, but there was a couple. I was a stupid person. So anyways, I always knew what to do because I grew up like that. I grew up going to jail and getting in trouble with the law and all that. And so I knew how to handle myself. I knew that if I wound up in jail, you look for the biggest guy and punch him in the nose. If anyone looks like they're going to mess with you, and you might get beaten up, but you're not going to get hurt. And I knew how to have the right attitude, the right toughness and demeanor. And so I'm thinking as I'm going into this jail, I'm thinking, man, I don't want to get hurt. And I'm thinking all these old thoughts of how you handle a jail situation. And I just thought, I'm not going to do it the old way. I'm rejecting it. I will not do it the old way. I'm not going to go in and act like I'm from the hood. I'm going to go in as a Christian. I'm going to tell people that I'm a Christian. And I'm going to live in accordance to this change in my life and not backslide for a short period of time and, get in fights or whatever else to protect myself. And so I did. I went in with that perspective. When they put me in the cell, I started telling people about Jesus. I'm witnessing to people. And one of the guys I started witnessing to was an imam who came in on the weekend. And when he came in, he had a whole bunch of tickets. And so they arrested him. They pulled him over and saw how many tickets he had. And there were so many that they put him in jail. And so I started witnessing to him. So there's a Muslim imam in the jail, and I start preaching the gospel to him like crazy. Well, he started going off on his Muslim stuff, and we just kind of went loggerheads, and it was just a philosophical argument. And he was like, well, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say, and you're not going to listen to what I have to say. And so we're sitting in this tension. And I was praying, Lord, how do I break through to this man and to these men that I'm locked up with? Because I'd been preaching the gospel to all of them. And the Lord gave me a really interesting thing to happen where I really had to truly prove that I was going to be a man of peace and not a man of war in the middle of jail. Because you hear, if you ever watch a movie about people being in jail, I'm not going to ask how many of you have been in jail, but I don't want to don't want to do that. But if you've ever been there, you've watched movies about it. Anytime guards are walking down the hallway, it really sounds like in the movies. You hear the clump, 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 and the little cling, chang, from the keys, and you know that they're there. It's just, there's a sound, and it's in every single jail, everywhere. It's just something that happens, and you're hoping they're not coming from you, for you, when you hear that clunk, clunk, clunk. Well, so I hear the footsteps. And they open up the door to the cell I'm in, and these three guys come in. And I was sitting on a bunk, and of the three guys, one of them, who appeared to be the lead person, they were all arrested together, they were friends, came over and sat next to me, and he was a homosexual. And he was also a Satanist. And he made a pass at me. And he pointed to a tattoo I used to have on my hand that was a sign of Apollyon. I had it cut out years ago. And he goes, ooh, I know what that is. I might need to be afraid of you. And I said, oh, this thing now doesn't mean anything. It's under the blood of Jesus. I became a Christian a couple years ago, and I'm here to tell you about the power and the love of God. And I started preaching the gospel to him. And he freaked out because he was a full-blown Satanist, part of the Church of Satan in San Francisco, the whole thing. And because his spirit was open, because he didn't think he was going to get blasted with the gospel, I ripped into him, and it just had a huge negative impact on him. And he started, hitting his head and pounding on a wall, and his friends went over to talk to him. And the imam came over because he was over in the area where they were at. And he goes, hey, you need to be careful. These guys want to kill you. They're really upset about what you said, and they're talking about two of them holding you down, and the crazy one biting your jugular vein and watching you bleed out. And I think they're serious. They want to kill you. And I'm like, oh, great. You're in jail and you're locked up, and everyone is kind of against you because you're a Christian telling them about God. And you have these three crazy guys that come in that want to kill you. It was kind of a bad day. So I started praying, okay, God, what do we do? What do we do? Because I jumped up on my bunk and I buried my face into my hands because I kind of knew that I was in trouble. And I started interceding and praying. And for those of you who don't know, I do pray in tongues. I'll tell you, I prayed in tongues a lot in that prayer session. Some English, some supernatural. And I was just, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, help, 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 help. Oh, you got to deliver me. You got to rescue me. You have to do something because I got to get out of here. It's like, this is more than I can handle. Let me out. Get me out of this place. This is crazy. I came in here to do what was right, and, I'm going to die. This is not fun. I don't want to die. So I'm praying for deliverance. A couple minutes goes by, and I heard the steps. And the jangling of the keys. They stopped in front of the cell again, opened the door. This time there were like 5 of them. And one of them had his hand behind his back. And they come in. And they look over at this really crazy one, because one of the 3 was like, you could just tell he was off his rocker just a little bit. He was nutty. Way, way, way too many drugs in his life and a whole bunch of other stuff. And they walk in, and they walk kind of over to where he was at, and 3 of them jumped him. And a 4th guy was holding his legs down. They hold him down, and the 5th guy takes a straitjacket out, and they wrap the straitjacket up, tie him up, and drag him out, straitjacketed, and they throw him into a padded cell across the hall. And all the while, he's yelling and screaming, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him, let me go. Well, I thought, this is interesting. This is good. There's 2 of them and 1 of me. So I went back to praying. This time my prayers were a little more invigorated. I had more faith. It wasn't desperation and I'm going to die, God help. I had that little boost of confidence and faith. It's like, okay, God, okay, now it's time to do the next thing. What are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? How are you going to get me out of this mess? Kid you not, within 2 minutes, boom, 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 boom. This time it's just one guard. He opens up the door. And he calls out the second person, not the lead guy, but the one who is sort of normal looking, calls his name out. He says, roll it up. You're out of here. There's no charges being pressed against you. And he looks at the guard and he says, oh, wait, I want to stay here with my friend. The guard looks at him and says, what do you think this is, a Hilton? Roll it up. You're out of here. So, now it's mano a mano, one-on-one. The head Satanist guy goes over, he starts banging his head on the wall, he strips down naked, he's washing himself over and over. That's what a Satanist would do, to cleanse himself of the slime that I'd put on him of Christianity. And he was doing everything he could to wipe it away. That's not what I want to focus on. What I want to focus on is what happened. That imam walked over to me, looked me in the eye, and he just said, I can't believe what I just saw. I saw God and the devil go at it. And he just went like this. He dropped down to his knee, and I led him to Jesus right on the spot. He said, what I believe is a lie, and I want this Jesus. And he gave his life to Christ. 5 other men that were sitting right there watching it, they dropped to their knee and did the same thing. Within an hour, I had led 26 out of the 30 men who were in that jail cell to Christ. It was pretty cool. That was up north in Southern Cal, was where I had to, face the judge, and I had to go through this whole succession of going from jail to jail. Everywhere I went, I kept winning people to Jesus, just preaching the gospel. And finally, I get in front of the judge, and I think the devil had figured out that I was going to be a problem if I stayed in jail. And so the judge said, it's obvious you changed your life, time served, and he let me go. And he said, have a good life, and I have. I've lived up to what he said. I've had a good life. We serve a great God. We do. We serve a powerful God. And when we trust him, when we allow him to have his way, and we say that we will obey what he calls us to obey and to do what he's called us to do, it is amazing the way that God resolves our issues by letting us be the instrument in him being the power behind us. It is incredible what God can do.